at all possible in a Zoom meeting about, you know, uh, having a Zen experience. And I'll just give it like another minute and then we can kind of get started with that intro. I'll only have a couple minutes, but anyway, okay, we go. Ooh, that's a pretty background. I'm complimenting everyone's backgrounds as they come on. It's fun to see where you are and what's going on in your life. All right, well, we're at 6:03, so everyone who's here so far, welcome to the Balance Section's third session in our Conscious Practice series. This session is called Helping Ourselves, Conscious Coloring to Relieve Compassion Fatigue. I am Debbie Borman, in case you don't know me. I don't know everyone. And I'm happy to see a few familiar faces so far, and I'm looking forward as people come in to see more familiar faces on the screen. So let me just start by giving you a heads up reminder to our last session in the series, which will be on December 9 from 4 to 4:30 Eastern Time. And that is called Becoming More Physically Active While Stuck Inside, and that will be presented by Lyle Baker with Tony Colsano. And we will be announcing our scheduled events for the spring of 2021, so stay tuned for those. So today I will be presenting, and you'll be participating in, an abbreviated version of a program that I presented at several workshops between 2015 and 2016 in places around our country. If you're interested in more details, this was originally designed for professors dealing with student stress, which is what we're going to be discussing today, but we actually have more stress than that in our lives right now, so I'm making a more global approach as part of our series. I have an article based on the practices we're doing today, so you can check that out in the summer 2016 edition of the Learning Curve. If you don't have access to that at your fingertips, you can send me an email and I'll happily send you a link. So let's see, looks like we still just have a little set of people, but that's all right. Okay, so I've got something in the chat. Hang on a second. Yes, I can send my email to everyone right here. An @ key. Thank you for that. Excuse my disorganization, if any. I think we're all kind of in a state of whatever right now in November. All right, well, let's get started and people can check in later. I have a little slide presentation I can share with you. And, let's see if it's here. Yeah. Okay, there's no sound, so you don't need to be worried about that. Okay, so here we are. Helping ourselves, conscious coloring to relieve compassion fatigue. That's what we are talking about today. So essentially what we are experiencing these days right now is trauma. And although the work in teaching brings us joy, we are actually acting as helpers. And when we are seeing our students through the multiple stresses of law school, teaching during the pandemic, all the other stresses that are piled on top of that, all of that can become emotionally toxic to us. And the same tendencies that we have towards helping our students make us especially vulnerable to overlooking our own needs. It's as if we have a self-care blind spot as teachers and helpers. You don't need to raise your hand, but how many of you have stayed late and missed something that you were planning on doing for yourself, like a yoga class or a workout or just, a meal or a walk around the block to help a student or assuage their fears. And we all do that, not only for students, but also for others in our lives, maybe a friend in need. So we need to recognize our blind spots and do something about it so that we can avoid compassion fatigue, which is the the ultimate cost of caring for others. So what is compassion fatigue? Well, it's a state of exhaustion and dysfunction as a result of prolonged exposure to compassion stress. I don't need to sit here and tell you that we've not only had a long exposure to compassion stress, but a long exposure to, extreme outside worldwide stress. So we're kind of, on a double, triple, quadruple stress track right now. And what this is, what we experience with our students is secondary traumatic stress. So that's a stress that's indirectly we get from their stress, from other people's stress. Like you're probably picking it up from your family, from everyone you talk to. I mean, I just picked it up from my vet a few minutes before I got on here. But either a specific event or a series of events that happen to someone else. And sometimes one situation can have a long-lasting effect on our psyches. So the one thing that we want to distinguish at this difficult time is between compassion fatigue and burnout. So burnout is when you're exhausted physically or emotionally and you have no motivation as a result of the prolonged stress or frustration, and you build to a breaking point. It comes from all sorts of work-related, sources. Usually it's work-related. So unlike burnout, compassion fatigue is accompanied more like by a rapid onset of sudden symptoms. It's likely to be more pervasive than burnout. While burnout builds over time, you get really sick of everything. It's a gradual build. The compassion fatigue seemingly just all of a sudden comes on and you're just like, I can't deal with this anymore. You feel helpless, shocked, confused, isolated, and sometimes the symptoms seem disconnected from real causes. Now with the pandemic, it's hard to disconnect. I mean, there's a real cause, but we also had other stress, worldwide stress, and even when some of that is lifted, and then our other stress can come up and take its place. So, despite all of these warnings, we have this ongoing sense of responsibility to care for others, students, family members, and other people who are suffering when we're in this caring type of position. And the impact on us can be physical, somatic. It impacts our personal life, our relationships, our work performance. Internal stressors that we bring with us, we bring them to work ourselves. We carry this around with us all the time. Our own personal schemas and beliefs or stigma, our social support systems, which can be either positive or negative. The negative can be enhanced, the positive can be reduced. Our own history of trauma and illness, which influences the way that we respond to new trauma. Our families and close relationships, and whether there's anything toxic, within there that can draw up our own experiences and bring us into, an additional state of stress. And then, of course, economic situation, which, many, maybe not us, but many people around us are losing jobs or lost jobs and unemployed people, are in our families, et cetera. All these things are internal and turn external. So the external stressors that get to us are at work, maybe a lack of good management, isolation from people that you need to talk to so that you can feel good about your work and what you're doing, a lack of control over the outcomes. You don't have any control over everything right now when everyone's remote and you're communicating virtually and by email. It's hard to read what things mean. You maybe think that people are being mean to you or sarcastic, and maybe they are, or you don't pick that up and they aren't. And it's very hard because you don't have that personal connection. And it's the same with our students. You don't really know, you know, how to respond and how to talk with them. And we have role conflicts. And then there's perceived or actual unfairness in rewards, you know, things that happen at work that now we can't see, we can't be there, we can't meet with people, we can't discuss like what's really happening. And, you know, it's a lot of different levels of external organizational factors that are providing our stress on top of the or underneath the pandemic. So the good news is that if we have compassion fatigue, that means that we have compassion satisfaction. As opposed to burnout, when we have compassion fatigue, it means that we're passionate about our work and our jobs and we love what we do. We're just kind of, you know, at the limit. So some of the coping strategies that we have to take on sound very simple. They're difficult right now because we don't have access to people. We do not want to harm ourselves. We want to seek out peer support. It's more difficult now because it means a Zoom call, which means you're stuck at your computer looking straight ahead, which you're probably doing all day. So it's more of that. That's very difficult. And then, you know, self-care with calming activities, which is what we're talking about here. And when I say self-care, you know, self-compassion, what we're talking about is when we have compassion for another person, we are aware of their suffering and we want to do something to alleviate that. But the other thing means that compassion means is that we're aware of the imperfect nature of being human ourselves. We realize, or we have to realize that people have faults and we try not to judge them harshly when they make mistakes. This is much harder in the virtual environment that we're in, where everyone can really take things personally. So the self-compassion is directed at ourselves. That compassion that we feel towards the other person, towards students, towards family members, towards people right now, is we have to direct that to ourselves because we need to get that energy. It sounds pretty straightforward, like easy, like, well, I gave it to you, now I just give it to myself, but it's actually pretty challenging. So part of that means that we have to become aware of our own suffering, which I think probably all of us are aware. Sometimes we're not though, sometimes we don't realize how hard things are affecting us. And then when we have that awareness, we can start to work on ensuring our well-being. One thing is that we have to try not to be overly critical of ourselves as we accept our mistakes and try to learn from them. That's a big one for me. In isolation and in this virtual time, I can really sit around and make myself really criticize myself and feel like I don't have, you know, much going on. And you know, when you feel that way, it's if you can take some sort of action, do something that you know that you're good at. That doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, but you know, just to kind of get yourself out of that rut. So our self-compassion, when we have that, will lead us to better mental health, help us manage stress, help us focus a little better, maybe increase our optimism, which is hard to manage right now. By the way, if you're an optimist, this has been a difficult time because you don't, you know, it's hard to talk to anyone about having anything, you know, to look forward to when we don't know what's going on in our world. But anyway, accept our mistakes and, you know, just try to learn from them for, you know, better health and try to make a better social connection. So now let's talk about mandalas. So the mandalas are a sacred circle. The word comes from ancient Sanskrit and it means circle or center. The simple geometric shape of the circle has no beginning or end, doesn't have sharp corners. Within the shape, It's a shape that promotes relaxation, balances energies, enhances your creativity, and supports healing. So the good news is you can have fun while and get all these benefits while coloring a mandala. Now, I want to say on the side that coloring became a big thing about maybe 5 years ago, coloring for adults. But not all coloring is, relieves stress in the same way as coloring in a circle. For example, if you're coloring swear words, I'm just saying you might just get a little more riled up in the process. Maybe you'll create something beautiful. I did this myself last week, but I didn't think that I felt any more zen out of it. Just kind of created a colorful, page of wonderful expletives. So circles reflect the environment, sun, sky, cells in your body, a snowflake, cat's eyes, Native American medicine wheel. I mean, circles, are all around us. And psychologically, Carl Jung would have clients color mandalas. That's how it came to be a therapeutic purpose. The circle compensating as a disorder for the psychic state. So this is the point where I would say to all of us, let us now sit with our friends and talk to them about our problems, which is another great thing to do, to sit down with a friend and color a circle, a mandala, while you're kind of getting your stress out and talking about things that bother you. But again, here we are in our isolated states, and we can't, share this in that way. So you guys, you go ahead and color, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about boosting your self-compassion. That's what I'm going to do here. Okay. So if you can meditate a little bit about yourself, and I don't mean sit down and, shut everything out, because meditation is hard for those of us with an active mind. We'll just do kind of a little light meditation. So here's what I have to say for all of us here. I deserve unconditional love and compassion. May I be loving, kind, and compassionate toward myself. May I be happy and joyful. May I live peaceful and free from mental, emotional, and physical suffering. May I live long and have healthy, loving relationships. Part of self-compassion also involves forgiving myself. I am aware that as a human being, I am fallible, and so are the other people in my life. May I be forgiving of my own mistakes as well as those of others. May I see my mistakes as opportunities to learn and grow. May I be patient and understanding. We should appreciate our successes. I will rejoice in my successes. I will not feel guilt, shame, or remorse over minor lapses. And I will appreciate the talents that I have and that I bring to the world. We should care for our minds. I am aware that a peaceful mind is the key to good mental and emotional health. May I be aware of the great wisdom that is within me and allow it to emerge through a peaceful mind. May I learn to cherish peace and quiet. We should care for our emotions. I am aware that there is a reason for each of my emotions. May I have the inner strength to look at the sources of my painful emotions so I can transform and be free of them. May I have the inner strength to not depend on pleasure and emotions as my source of happiness, but rather on a peaceful mind. May I always remember that I deserve love and compassion from myself, just as other people are deserving of peace, love, and happiness, so am I. May I be courageous in dealing with difficulties and always meet with success. May I be diligent and committed to my personal development. And may my true nature shine through and onto all beings that I encounter. So hopefully some of those thoughts are like 3% of them, like with our students, will kind of go into your mind and you can start to feel compassion for yourself. We have about 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions or wants to share what they've done so far in their work or any other suggestions.
So I'll ask a question, Deborah. I have to say, I'm not a colorer, but I have been looking forward to this all day.
Great.
So much. So I'm like, now I'm really thinking more about coloring as I'm approaching the holidays. So I guess I'm just curious about your coloring practice.
Well, first of all, let me just say that you do not need to be good at this. Now, that's a problem, or let me not say a problem, but an issue for those of us who are achievers. But there's no quantitative measure here. So my practice is, oh man, I'm really, really pissed off. I am going to grab some pens and pencils and crayons and sit down and just do something without judging whether it's good or bad. That is really hard. The first time I started doing this, actually, someone in this group can tell me, I was doing it with someone else and I was like, oh, your colors are better than mine. I like the way you organize them. I shouldn't have used the yellow here or the orange there. No, none of that. None of that. No perfection, it's just you and your expression.
But I get, so it's all helpful and it's all provoking thoughts for me, but is it like only when you get mad that you grab the pencils, or like every morning, every evening, do you have a time that you spend 30 minutes coloring, I guess?
Well, so I don't do anything in any structured way, which makes me a very unusual person. It is something that it is in my toolbox of things to do. I had an extremely trying weekend last weekend, and instead I made a Christmas tree out of an art easel. That's what I did. I saw something, I put some things together. I made up an ad. I mean, I make things, make posters. You know, a lot of it does have to do with coloring, writing words, drawing numbers. But you know, it's basically in your toolbox of things to do. Like there might be many people like to do physical things. They don't produce, but for me, I feel better if I've produced something, not a perfect thing, not something that you go and sell, you know, but just something that I can say, I did this. I did this. So this is one of my tools. How's everybody doing?
I'm so into this. Suddenly.
Well, you know what? If you guys want to, you should take a picture and send it to me in my email. So there was one of the pictures in my PowerPoint was a coloring drawing that was done by an attorney friend of mine who's now retired. She did it about maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I first started getting into this. And I put it in here as part of the presentation. But yeah, it's just, you know, I think it's just satisfying to create something. I don't always finish them, by the way, either. If you buy books that are too hard or they're really complicated, or the little segments are too small, you know, just do as much as you can. If you get sick of it, start a different one.
What's interesting to me is that I find it really hard to slow down enough to like do something like this. Like today, I thought, I'm too busy. I have too many meetings. Like, and then I just said,
Mhm.
no, like, I really have been looking forward to this. Like somebody else said, I'm just going to do this. And
Yeah.
like, now that I'm like slowed down, I'm doing it's like, all right, now I don't want to get up. I don't want to do anything else.
Right. And that's a problem for me too, because, we never sit down. I mean, I'll sit down and watch TV, but that's passive. I'll never really, it's really, really hard to make that commitment. What you just described is what we all do. I noticed that we have a group of women here. Not that there's anything, sexist going on, but I am betting that, we're taking care of 95% of everything that needs to be taken care of. And then after that, you might not want to sit down and do something. Okay, I've just gotten the 1 minute warning. So, does anyone else want to share anything before we go? Just go ahead. Unmute yourself. Oh, there you go.
I was just going to share, a couple months ago, I subscribed to a monthly art box called Let's Make Art. And they have different ones, but one of them is art journaling. And the idea is to have a space that you don't ever share with anybody. This is just your space to like experiment and do stuff. And they, once a week, you get a video of like how to do the project of the week. And, if you get behind, it's fine. You can do them later.
Yeah.
And they have instructional videos on there. You don't even have to subscribe to the box. You can just watch what they're doing with your own supplies. But it's been a really nice way to kind of slow down. My 8-year-old's been doing them with me also. And we'll just at the end of the day, once a week or so, just chill out. And the woman doing it is always sort of talking about like, let's just slow down, make something. Don't judge it. Nobody's going to have to see it. This is your art journal. So this kind of taps into that idea too.
Yeah. And doing it with someone, though difficult right now, if you have anyone in your household that you also want to like rein in and slow down, it's a really nice idea.
Yeah. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for having me. I was happy to slow myself down for a minute. And I'll hear people joining at the way end as help. So, administrator, do we get cut off, or can we stay on extra time? Let's see.
I don't think there's a cutoff. I think if people want to hang out a little bit longer, they can.
Okay.
Feel free to leave, as far as I understand.
Okay. Well, I'm good. You can stay on. Okay. Well, let's stay on for not as loud all night, but for as long as we have some commenting and something to say. Maybe I'll, okay. Thank you, Sue. Everyone, thank you, Susan. Thank you for coming and staying in. Yeah. Another K. We have a K.
Thank you, Debbie. This is amazing. This is so cool.
It's great to see you. It's really nice to see people in person.